Yeah, coming to the next topic is the biofertilizers. We know the difference between regular chemical pesticides, sorry, not pesticides here, chemical fertilizers and biofertilizers. See, the difference is chemical fertilizers, for suppose if we use 100 grams of chemical fertilizers, or if we shown 100 grams of chemical fertilizers to the field, in that only 1% is absorbed by the plant. Total 100 grams, okay, only 1% is absorbed by the plant, and remaining the total content will be waste. Maybe certain quantity enter into the atmosphere, certain quantity enter into the water content of water, right? Certain quantity is present within the soil, but that is not in the absorbed form, right? So what we use that chemical fertilizers, okay, within that only very minimum percentage is absorbed by the plant. And see, the concept is here, biofertilizers, we are using some of the biological agents or living organisms which involve in the enhancement of soil fertility, It's nothing but the nutrients which are present within the soil, right? That nutrients absorbed by the plant, again nutrient depletion will be takes place within the soil. So again the refilling process, that is also called replenish process, or refilling process is done by some of the microorganisms. Once the plants absorbs the nutrients from the soil, okay, definitely there is an deficient is there, because the plants already absorbed the nutrients from the soil. Again, the refilling process is done by some of the microorganisms here, right? So these are called biofertilizers. The very first one is the bacteria, we are using biofertilizers. And next one, fungi, we are using as the biofertilizer. And next one is the blue-green algae, that is nothing but cyanobacteria, that one is also biofertilizer, right? See, the very first one, the bacteria, there is a symbiotic bacteria is there, free living bacteria is there. We know the process of nitrogen fixation. The atmospheric nitrogen is converted into ammonia. Or the inorganic nitrogen is converted into ammonia. Or organic nitrogen, right? So the process is called as nitrogen fixation. That nitrogen fixation is done by the microbes. See here, there is a rhizobium bacteria. We know about the rhizobium is the bacteria. It's a gram-negative bacteria. That bacteria involved in the nitrogen fixation process, because that bacteria having the nitrogenase enzyme, that enzyme involved in the nitrogen fixation process. We know the concept here, symbiosis process. Bacteria enter into the roots of the Fabaceae family. There is a root nodules production takes place, right? See, the interaction is done by the lectins. The bacteria and the plant interaction is done by the lectins, right? Then the rhizobium bacteria involved in the nitrogen fixation process. So the process is called as symbiotic nitrogen fixation. And next one is free living nitrogen fixation. Here, Azospirillum, Azotobacter, these are the bacteria which, okay, individually, the individual organisms which are not interact with any other organisms, individually these organisms have the capacity to fix the nitrogen, right? So Azospirillum and the Azotobacter, both these are involved in the nitrogen fixation process. Here individual nitrogen fixation process, here there is an interaction is there which are interact with other organisms. Both are getting benefit here. That's the reason why this one is symbiotic nitrogen fixation, right? So that is about the bacteria. And next one is that fungi. Here Glomus, this is the one of the genus. Glomus is the fungi. This is one of the, okay, fungi. This is one of the genus. This is the fungi. Glomus is one of the genus, right? That genus, Glomus genus, especially interact with the higher plants. See, these are forms the thread-like structures. The Glomus forms the thread-like structures. We know this is one of the higher plant root. So in certain plants, the roots are not having functioning capacity. The roots not have the functioning capacity. In that case, the roots interact with some of the fungi which are forms the thread-like structures, especially thread-like structures which formed by the type of fungi is the glomus. Right? See, these are called mycorrhizal roots. We know the best example is the Pinus. Pinus is the plant. The plant having the roots are not having the absorption capacity which are interact with the fungi. That fungi, right, involved in the absorption of water and minerals from the soil. The plants will be survived and the fungi getting food from the plant. So both these are getting benefit. This is called symbiotic relationship, and this type of roots are called as mycorrhizal roots. Because myco indicates your fungi and rhiza indicates your roots of the plant, right? So the benefit of glomus to the plant, here, okay, this is not benefit to the glomus. Actually, once the glomus is interact with the plant roots, okay, what are the advantages to the plant? Phosphorus absorption. The mycorrhizal roots are very effective. Insoluble phosphate is present within the soil. That one is converted into that soluble phosphate and absorption takes place. Phosphorus absorption. And next one kills the pathogens. Some of the microbes which are present within the soil, that microbes are killed. We know, we discussed there is a rhizosphere and some of the microbes are there which causes the disease. So these are also killed by that glomus and enhance the resistance to drought conditions. For suppose some of the soil during the summer season not having the water content, even that condition also, if the plant interact with that the glomus or mycorrhiza, if the plant roots are forms that mycorrhiza or the mycorrhizal roots, we know there is an ectomycorrhiza and the endomycorrhiza, right? And these mycorrhiza absorbs the water from very deep areas. Even drought conditions also the plants are survived. Right? That is about that bacteria and the fungi. And next one is the blue-green algae. See, we know about that blue-green algae. This is one of the cyanobacteria which shows the first oxygenic photosynthesis process, right? And see, these are forms the filamentous structures. The blue-green algae majorly forms the filamentous structures. Some of the cells, and these are the vegetative cells, and these are very thick and large cells are there. These cells are called as heterocyst cells. These cells are called as heterocyst cells, right? There is a blue-green algae is there, that is nothing but the cyanobacteria, right? See, these are called heterocyst cells. That heterocyst, this is about cyanobacteria. Blue-green algae, also called cyanobacteria, right? There is two types of cells are there. Vegetative cells are there and heterocyst cells are there. And these are very special cells. The heterocyst cells are large and thick cell wall is present and which are involved in nitrogen fixation process. The examples are Nostac, Anabina, Acetoria. Right? So these are the some of the biofertilizers. Some are symbiotic relationship and some are free living, and some are fungi, some are bacteria, some are blue-green algae. These are also bacteria, but these are very separate form. That's the reason why these are called as cyanobacteria, right? So that is about that biofertilizers. And I like to discuss about one of the important point. Some of the bacteria are there, which are artificially designed within the laboratory. These are called as superbugs. This is one of the bacteria. The bacteria having many number of plasmids. Right? We know, or suppose this one is the R plasmid. All these are different types of R plasmids. The bacteria having resistance to all types of antibiotics. Then we are unable to kill. then these are act on the human beings and kills the human species and the animal species also. This is a very very dangerous situation. Okay, okay. And next one, some of the these are also used as bioweapons. These are also designed within the laboratory. Okay, these can also used as the bioweapons. And some of the superbugs, these are also called superbugs. Okay, some of the superbugs are there. Some of the superbugs are there, right? See, these bugs are used in the pollution clearing process. For suppose within the ocean, okay, within the ocean, oil spills. Okay, one ship is there. The ship loaded with that oil. Suddenly, the ship sinked within the water. Then oil layers will be formed the surface of the water. If we clear that oil layer, then organisms will be survived because oxygen entry takes place. So oil pollution, especially cleared by some of the microbes. Then within the laboratory conditions, some of the scientists have designed many number of plasmids are there, and these plasmids produces different types of enzymes which are involved in the degradation of polluting agents. Right? So simply I like to say some of the superbugs are useful. Some of the superbugs are harmful. Harmful in the sense within the laboratory, bioweapons are created. Okay, the bacteria, this kind of bacteria are the superbugs also we can use as bioweapons. Okay, if the superbug contains that R plasmids, full of R plasmids, we can use it as the bioweapon. If the superbug contains that plasmids, the plasmids are involved in the destruction of polluting agents, then this one is we can use it as pollutants clearing process. We can use it as pollutants clearing process, right? Some of the superbugs are useful and some of the superbugs are harmful, means mostly which are created and which are designed like bioweapons, right? That is about that biofertilizers and other examples, right? And next one we discuss about that emerging and re-emerging diseases. Coming to the next one is the diseases which are caused by the microbes. We know different types of pathogenic microorganisms. Some are bacteria, some are viruses, some are fungi, right? Some other protozoan organisms also there. So, which causes the diseases? See here, the diseases here are classified into two types: emerging diseases and re-emerging diseases. Here, emerging diseases means right now these are very very dangerous diseases. See, the very first one is the mad cow disease. In the first year, when we discuss about the viruses, there is an concept is there. Especially viral proteins. The viral proteins, some of the viral proteins have the capacity to cross the blood-brain barrier, right? And which binds to the brain and alters the nerve impulse transmission. Then finally the person loses that coordination between the brain and the body, right? See, the disease initially seen in cows, later, those who eat that cow meat, the persons also get this disease. Get this disease, right? This one is called as mad cow disease. And coming to the next one is the AIDS. Here, this is also caused by one of the virus. Name of the virus is the HIV virus, human immunovirus. The family is the Retroviridae, right? These are also called retroviruses. Why these are called retroviruses? Because the viruses having the genetic material is RNA. RNA is converted into the DNA by the reverse transcriptase enzyme, right? That's the reason why here the family name is Retroviridae and the viruses are called as retroviruses. And this is one of the dangerous virus because once the virus is entering to the humans, especially this is pathogenic too, means disease causing capacity seen in only human beings. once for suppose if the virus is entered to the monkey, it's unable to cause the disease. The virus entered into the human body, it's have the capacity, because the interaction between that virus and the human cells, especially T helper cells, which are having that CD4 receptors. So between these two interactions takes place, then the viral genetic material incorporated inside the T helper cell, and the T helper cell inside produces that many number of HIV virus. Then the virus again released and act on different body parts of the humans. Especially the virus targets the T helper cells. These are the main cells for the human immune system. Okay. See, if the T helper cells are active, all cells are active. If the T helper cells are not there, okay, remaining all immune cells are inactive, because all immune cells activated by the T helper cells. So the concept is here, which targets the retroviruses, targets that main cells which destroys, then the immune system is not activated. Right? That is about that AIDS disease and severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, right? SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. See, the disease which is related to that respiratory system, right? So which destructs that alveoli cells, and there is no respiration, there is no exchange of the gases, the person will be dying. See, severe acute respiratory syndrome. That is about that the three types of the emerging disease. See, right now all we know, the most emerging disease is the corona, right? This is also pandemic disease. Corona is also pandemic disease. See, whatever the diseases which are very, very dangerous right now, which are considered as emerging diseases. So coming to the next concept is the re-emerging disease. Re-emerging disease means these are dangerous. Once upon a time the diseases are very dangerous. Cholera is very, very dangerous once upon a time. Okay, and tuberculosis is also very dangerous, and still dengue is the dangerous. We don't have that vaccine, and we don't have the proper treatment for the dengue. Still now also, right? See, cholera, once upon a time, tuberculosis and dengue, these are very, very dangerous diseases. Right now, somewhat we have some medications, means antibiotics, to kill these microorganisms. We can control these diseases. Remember all of you, those the organisms, these are dangerous once upon a time. Okay, maybe. Okay, these are cooled down, means these are inactive state, means which not shows that very strong pathogenicity. Okay, because genetical changes. Still the genetical changes are going on. Okay, maybe these organisms have the capacity to get the very, very strong pathogenicity characters. Means, okay, once upon a time these are very, very dangerous. Right now, these are not much dangerous. Maybe in the future, okay, genetical changes that takes place. These maybe get high pathogenic nature or high pathogenic genes. Maybe these are again act on the human beings, kill the human beings. So in the future, definitely some of the every time, okay, adaptations are going on, right? So adaptation means the genetical, whatever the genes are there, the genetical changes are takes place. So definitely chance is there, changes within the cholera bacteria, tuberculosis bacteria, and dengue organism, right? Definitely changes are going on. See, if the changes gives the strong pathogenicity to organism, again these are act on the humans and kills the humans. So that character is called as re-emerging diseases. That kind of diseases are called as re-emerging diseases, right? That is about that emerging and the re-emerging diseases. And all of you remember some of the important words are there. I already said that superbugs, useful and there, harmful and there, right? And bioterrorism, we discussed already. Bioterrorism means, see, once upon a time there is in olden days wars are there, okay, between that person to person war is there. Later, okay, guns, people use the guns, right? And later the guns war is replaced by the nuclear weapons. Right now, nuclear weapons are going on, right? Most of the countries are using, but not using every time, but definitely every country have that nuclear bombs, right? That's why there is a First World War and Second World War. If Third World War is there, definitely, nuclear weapons are used in the next time. Right? See, every case, humans are needed. Okay, man to man, man to man. There is an olden days battles are there, and guns. Okay, definitely human beings are required. But most of the countries are planning bioweapons. Bioweapons. When we use the bioweapons, no use. Okay, no use of the humans means if we use one biological agent, one disease causing agent to opponent person, okay, that person carries and spreads the disease, spreads that agent and spreads the disease. So no need of humans, either in gun war, either in any other war, humans are required, man to man or gun to gun, right? That kind of fights are there, wars are there. But if we use the biological agent, the advantage is no use of manpower. Simply, easily spreads the diseases, and the human beings will be killed. Opponent human beings will be killed. So that is about most of the countries are right now researches are going on, and see right now Corona is also that kind of, not that kind, but Corona also spreaded like that. Corona also spreaded like that, right? That is about that emerging and the re-emerging diseases. And see, the next one is the genomics. Genomics, this is one of the word, study about total genome content in a organism. Study about total genome content in a organism. That one is called as genomics. And next one is proteomics. Next one is proteomics. Proteomics is nothing but total protein content within organism. Total protein content within the organism. Right? That one is called as proteomics. See, the very important and the future is completely depends on bioinformatics. Future is completely depends on bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is nothing but, for suppose, in a species, the total genome content is digitalized. Protein content, total protein content is digitalized. See, particular species, the total information is available in the form of software. Available in the form of software. Simply we are sitting in front of computer and we are searching data. Then we get that protein content, we get that genome sequence. And all the contents are available in the form of digital. Right? So that information or that kind of study, okay, is called as bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is completely digitalized genomics and proteomics, and remaining all the information, okay, regarding to all the species. So the information available in the digital form. The information available in the digital form, right? That is about that bioinformatics. So these are the words which are related to this chapter. Okay, this is about that emerging and re-emerging diseases. This chapter is completed. Next one we'll discuss about that mineral metabolism, right?